Please stay seated at all times while the train's in motion. Very important. We don't want to lose anybody. We can pick you up on the way back, but it's not recommended. Just try and stay on the train if you can. Second thing, in between these cars, you'll see these lovely little black bars. They are stealth bars. They will trip you up. They have tripped me up. So be sure to step over those and not through them. It's a much more pleasant experience. We did notice this morning there are a fair number of critters that have dug holes and nests in our roadbed because it's been pretty wet down in the bottoms. So watch your step while you're walking around there, otherwise you might trip over a mule hole. When we stop, we'll toot the horn one time to let you know it's safe to get off the train. If you hear 2 or 3, that means we're moving. So 1, 2. We also have on the back of the train, there's a Biffy car. You may use that at any time during the trip. It will be on the back both ways, by the way, which is a trick, so watch how we do that. But we don't recommend using it while the train's in motion. Not pretty at all. Okay, I think that's about all I have to say, so have a great one of the most unique places in the state of Wisconsin during the logging history. A lot of the sawn lumber logs were floated down the Chippewa River and came down through Beef Slough here. Millions of board feet that went down to Elma, to Beef Slough, where they would put them into Mississippi River rafts and they'd go down the Mississippi River. Or if your logs didn't come down Beef Slough, you'd go down to Chippewa River to Reed's Landing, Minnesota, where they'd bundle them up into these big rafts and send them on down, as far as Iowa, Illinois, St. Louis for that matter, to the mills there. So that's a pretty unique spot right there. The other thing I want to mention too is back in July of 2016, had a whole series of severe storms coming here. Tornadoes, high winds, and you're going to see really hundreds and hundreds of trees that are down as a result of that storm. As a result of that, we had to spend days out here clearing the rail line and exo energy.
Bark on coming down the tree.
It's not 100%.
It's a white-breasted nuthatch. They're common at people's feeders and things.
I found that bird.
Oh yeah.
I haven't been able to find anything.
are more endangered, threatened, and special concern plant and animal species in this area of the state of Wisconsin than any other similar sized area in the state. You got things like paddlefish out in the river, blue suckers, brittle prickly pear cactus, red-shouldered hawks, cerulean warblers, peregrine falcons here, trumpeter swans you'll see. All sorts of unique plants and animals that are found here. 70% of all the native fish found in Wisconsin are found in the lower Chippewa River. 75% of all nesting birds are found in this area of the state. 25% of all the remaining native prairies are found in the lower Chippewa River. And one of the most unique habitats, floodplain savannas, we have some great examples of floodplain savannas, which is a very threatened habitat type. We've got those here. It's an important bird area. It's designated by the Department of Natural Resources, and the Wisconsin Wetlands Association has designated it as a wetland gem because it's part of the most continuous, largest floodplain forest in the Midwest. This is all. No, this is floodplain. Serious about finding somebody to come in here to farm this land. Well, there's a fellow over in Minnesota there that saw the advert. They were looking for something land reclamation. They said, I know the perfect person for you. My brother's from Cornell University, degree in land reclamation, drainage, and that kind of stuff. And he came out here.
It's official! All aboard!
Yellow.
Everybody be bored about this. I'm not going to use the megaphone, but this railroad was built in 1881 and 1882 by the Chippewa Valley and Superior Railway Company. Almost immediately it was sold to the Milwaukee Road, the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul at that time. No Pacific until 1918, so before that. It ran from Wabasha up to as far as Reed's Landing, for those of you familiar with the area, just at the beginning of Lake Pepin. And then it took a right-hand turn and crossed the Mississippi River on a bridge that was a combination of trestle work like we've been going across and a floating pontoon bridge. There was a center section that would open so that the barge and riverboat traffic could get through. Now, I have some photos in this book. I'm going to pass this around, whoever wants to take a look at it. Just whenever everybody's done with it, they can go up to that front engine, that would be fine. So who would like to start with that? Okay, and there's many other fun things in there too, but that happens to be the pictures of the bridge. The line was bought by the Milwaukee Road in part because they planned on extending it as far as Superior, Wisconsin, which never happened because they were able to get trackage rights, in other words, the ability to run over someone else's tracks, from St. Paul up to Duluth over the Northern Pacific Railway Company. So they never had to. So this line started, came through this area where we're at, came through Durand, and then just north of Durand at a place called Cedar Junction, it split. Part of it went up the Red Cedar River, which is now the Cedar Trail, to Menominee, and then a little bit further to a place called Cedar Falls, which is just up the river a little bit from there. Cedar Falls at that time had a big lumber mill, and that's why it was built up to there. It didn't last too long up to Cedar Falls, but lasted to Menominee up until the 1970s. The other section of the track went up to Eau Claire, and from Eau Claire went up as far as Chippewa Falls. And right downtown Chippewa Falls, next to the dam, is basically where its freight station was, right in that area. As an aside, I don't know if you guys were aware, but at one time there were 4 railroads going between Eau Claire and Chippewa Falls. The Milwaukee Road, the Sioux Line, Chicago Northwestern, or the Omaha, I believe, at that time, and there was an electric interurban line, which also went between there. So there's a lot of traffic between those two cities, even back in the 1800s, late 1800s. The line was built ostensibly to haul lumber, but by that time, most of the lumber was gone. Just like anything else, a lot of railroads were built to go and get silver out of the mountains. Silver was gone by the time they got there. It's just typical of railroads because they're so expensive and so much lead time. They can't always get where they need to be. So this line spent its lifetime hauling general freight and passengers. Passengers up until 1949 that we're aware of, at least 1949. And freight continued on until into the 80s, actually, early 1980s. It went along doing its little job, carrying things here until January of 1977, where at this particular junction, right where we're at, there was a derailment. A 50-car train or so was heading north towards Eau Claire, and somewhere in the middle of the train, several cars, we believe up to 6 cars, jumped the tracks. If you can take a look at the bridge down there, see at the very top, it looks like somebody actually tore the steel. And that is from 2 railroad cars going up over the top of the bridge and ending at least partially in the water. In that book, there's pictures of it if you want. This is one of the said cars. It was fully down into the water at that spot, and some miscreants later, the next day or so, came from across the river, set fire to it. It was, there's either reports I've heard that was hauling scrap paper or that was hauling cardboard boxes for master locks. Take your pick. It was paper. It burned really well. They felt that it wasn't worth them salvaging it for scrap, but they couldn't leave it in the river because the slough, actually, this little watershed is called Little Beef Slough. It was considered navigable water, so they had to remove it. So they just drug it up here and dropped it. You'll also see along here, there's a couple of sets of railroad wheels. There's one right on the other side of the tracks here, there's one further down. On the other side of the bridge, there's just 2 wheel sets that are just sitting over there. They were part of a truck that was sitting right in the middle of the bridge when we got here, when we cleaned it up in the 1990s. So the Milwaukee Road really didn't have any business between Durand and the Mississippi River. Plus, they were also paying for what's called trackage rights over the Burlington, the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy at that time, now BNSF, from right down here by the Chippewa River, where the Chippewa River joins the Mississippi, down as far as East Winona. Then they would back across the river on a bridge, go and end up right in front of where the Amtrak station is now. So they're just starting to pull the tracks out of, but that's where the caboose used to be set. during the middle of the night when they changed cars. So rather than do this, they just got permission to run over the Chicago Northwestern to Eau Claire from the cities, and just ran down to Durand and back to do the business. There was a fair amount of business in Durand at the time. Fertilizer products, canned peas and beans were made here. There's a canning company. Also, one of 2 powdered milk plants owned by Safeway Company was in Durand. The plant is still here, still makes powdered milk, but it's not owned by Safeway anymore. But at that time, they were taking whole carloads of finished product out by rail. The Milwaukee Road at that time was really bad shape financially, and very shortly after this happened, they went bankrupt. They decided they could no longer run the line down to Durand, so for a short period of time, the 3 counties involved actually hired someone to come in and run trains for them. It was called the Chippewa River Railroad for about 18 months. And at the end of the 18 months, they had bridge inspectors come in and take a look at the bridges in Eau Claire. The ones that are still being used, by the way, by the bicycle trail, those bridges. They are cast iron bridges, they are not steel. And because of that, the engineer was not able to determine how strong they were still. So the company said, well, we can't get insurance to run over your tracks anymore, so we won't be able to run anymore. So basically from 1882 until 1982 was the life of this line as a freight hauler. Back in 1978, Northern States Power Company of Wisconsin was thinking about building a power plant north of Durand at a place called Tyrone. They bought 4,000 acres of land. They were going to originally build a nuclear power plant. Got a lot of bad feedback from that, so they said, okay, we're not going to fight them. We'll build a coal-fired plant instead. Never happened, but in order to do that, you have to get the coal in. So what they did was they purchased this portion of the line that Milwaukee Road wasn't using as a way to be able to keep the right-of-way in case they wanted to haul coal in from the Burlington Northern up to their coal plant. So in 1995, so between 1978 and 1995, absolutely nothing happened on this line. Nothing happened on this line. In 1995, a group of 4 individuals from Eau Claire got together and said, hey, this track is still down here. Wouldn't it be nice if we could run our little motor cars on these things? They said, well, all they can do is say no. Well, NSP said yes, and we've had an operating agreement with NSP of Wisconsin, doing business as XL Energy, for, well, since 1995, so it's about 20 plus years now. To run on this line, we pay them nothing, but we do all the maintenance. We also have to provide them with liability insurance. I believe the agreement is $1 million. We have a couple million on liability insurance, which we pay for out of our own pockets as well. When we came down here, there were trees as big as 4 inches growing in between the rails. It was a challenge to get out here. The worst part was the bramble bushes. Going through a couple hundred yards of bramble bushes is not fun.
off there.
Oh yeah.
That was a micro. That was a micro.
Say all aboard?
Yeah.
No, I got you saying it, so that's better.
We've got about 25 minutes and then we'll be down there. We got one more little stop, about 10 minutes.
And I didn't use. I know.
The next one is low and the next one's off. Yours is on medium, right?
Is that regular now?
Yeah.
Kingfisher. Calling along the river back there.
I can't get it to turn.
7 inches tall, but it's really big. Plus it's harder to handle because you gotta have bigger equipment.
There's a couple spots where you see the rails going across that we've seen. Are those all for?
Thank you. You're welcome.
The other one, so they get about 6 feet. All of these snakes, the Chippewa, Massasoit snakes, are
I think we can get one.
ectothermic.
Number 8 is 15 hours.
So what time will come to red one?
We don't hear it.
Tonight.
Put it in there. Oh, okay.
Tell me if you know that.
Lost your shoes.
I lost my keys on purpose and get too hot.
They leave the. What's that?
No, they're pulling it. They're hooking it up in the back.
Making sure nobody's in it.
That's how they put it to the end of the train. They've done it many times, I'm sure.
Highlight of the trail.
Just tip it over while there's somebody in there. I don't think so.